If you are a person who is interested in, fascinated by, concerned with, passionate about the person of your Creator, I suggest you really listen to this. Much like many of our videos, this has content that you will not hear anywhere by anyone in the world. That's just true. I don't know of anyone who says certain things we say. Some of the things we say you can hear in certain limited places by a very small group of people, but for lack of a better term, this is simply revelation, and you should consider it. You should consider things outside of your cookie cutter, religious, little, comfortable life you have as it is. And I don't say that in a point the finger way, no matter how you may hear that, because I lived a cookie cutter, safe little life. I've been religious. I've been in the world. I've been all of it. And there is no safety with God other than the safety that is in His person. He does not provide safety for your flesh or for your tender little feelings. He provides safety for your soul. And that's not, He doesn't even use that word safety. He says peace. He provides a peace that surpasses all things, including the hell you will go through in this world. So I recorded a thought, and I'm going to play portions of it, and then I'm going to comment on it, because it's just a little 3 to 4 minute thought, but there's a lot of nuggets in there that I want to expand on. So just bear with me here. I'm going to play a portion, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about what I thought when I recorded this thought. For two different persons to agree on something, there must be a presentation or a putting forth of that something from one to the other or outside of them, this new information or idea or plan, and then they agree. Because if it is from eternity past, it's not a matter of an agreement. It's a matter. So this, I'm speaking in general terms regarding this notion that when they say the Spirit and the Father and the Son agree, there would be no agreement unless there was a new idea put forward. But if it's from eternity past, there is no, hey, I have this thought, I have this idea, what do you two think? There's no such thing. It simply is what it is. And I'm going to say that later. I just wanted to pepper that throughout this whole thing. The nature of truth is that it comes from one source. It has to come from one source. And it is not more truth because I agree with it, so it doesn't follow that God must have another God to agree with His Godship or whatever to make it true. Just like they do that with love. Love can't be unless there's an object of His love. Therefore, the Trinity, which never explains the third one, because you might explain the Trinity if such a thing made sense, but it doesn't make any sense. It assumes love from our standpoint, from our idea of what love is, which is, it's carnal. It's just what it is. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but we have carnal love, and we don't know what divine love is until we know the one true God. So this notion of them, quote unquote, agreeing on something is nonsense. The scriptures that they use to suggest and preach and teach that there is more than one God person are really scriptures that are used to identify who God is, who Jesus really is, because the writers are trying to teach people who had always known God as the one true and living God, the God of the Bible, and then this man comes here and identifies himself as God, and the writers are simply conveying the reality that, yeah, that's your God. He does everything God does because He is God. There isn't two people doing the same thing or doing the same thing twice or whatever they can come up with, which again does not make sense. God, when He does something, He does it and He's finished. That's why He said He was finished. Of the question, are they even different people? How could there be a difference between one person and another if something has always been, and that something is the truth, and they are, quote unquote, both the substance of truth itself? That would suggest that there is more than one truth. Even if it's only a duplication of the same truth, that means there are two truths, which would be redundant to say the least. Why would we need a duplication of the truth? So how could there be an agreement between several persons of God when it is not established? It does not begin. It always was. That is not an agreement. That is something that simply is. And just to reassert that, to agree on something means that this new information had to come into view. Is that true? Do you agree? Yes, I agree. We agree. But if it's something that simply always has been, which is who God is, that's why it says He is the self-existent one. That's the meaning of His name, the YHWH, the Tetragrammaton, I think it's called, the name that cannot be pronounced. He is the one, the self-existent one, the one who is. And there is only one who can be self-existent. And this video is not going to be a lot about that, but talk to God about it, pray about it, think about it. You will find out, if you really want to know the truth, that is. If you want to find your religion, you'll find that. There's plenty of spirits and voices out there to confirm your religion, your superstition, your whatever you want to believe. Your tritheism and your polytheism. But if you want to know the truth of certain things, seek it with all your heart. Seek the truth and you will find the truth. There is only one that can be the self-existent one. By definition, there cannot be the self-existent three. It doesn't work that way. For instance, before there was any creation, love existed. He did not need to create something in order for love to exist. But the Trinitarian will say there must be an object of His love. He cannot simply love Himself or love in a vacuum. But that presumes that that is the nature of love. Love must have something outside of itself. But then that gets into the whole problem of God the Father being outside of God the Son. And that would have to then follow with everything else. There can't be justice unless there's someone to be just towards. There cannot be kindness unless there is someone to be kind towards. There cannot be acceptance. There cannot be anything, really, unless there is another person. But God had all these attributes. He always had all these attributes, and it shows what those attributes really are in that He wanted to have someone to shower them on, to show His love to show His acceptance, His justice, His kindness, His patience, and all those things. He already had them. He didn't need there to be someone else. Because think about it. They pick on love as this thing that proves that God is more than one person. Well, what about patience? There can't be patience without... So, I guess the Son misbehaved when He was young. In eternity past, He was a misbehaving little boy, and God had to exercise this fruit of the Spirit known as long-suffering or patience. It all breaks down because none of it makes sense, at least not in the spirit realm. It may make sense to the person, and clearly it does. I mean, I've read C.S. Lewis books. They're very, very carnal, but from a carnal viewpoint, they make a lot of sense because it's following after the paganism of Augustine, who followed after the paganism of the Greek philosophers, Aristotle and all them. So it's not about getting something that makes sense to reason, which is another argument I reject wholeheartedly, that apologists always talk about. God gave you reason, and that's what you use to figure things out. No, so the supernatural is not reasonable. The supernatural is beyond reason. You can only know supernatural things by the spirit of the supernatural, which is not reasonable. It's not unreasonable, but you have to have that spirit to see the reasonableness of it, because it's different than the reasonableness of the nature of our flesh. And that's what 1 Corinthians chapter 2 is all about. I want to do a video about that soon, about the whole chapter. I've done videos about different verses on it, but that is a chapter that clearly states that our understanding comes from God. It doesn't come from the reason that He gave us. We might use that as a tool to get to Him, to make the decision to trust Him, But it's not until we trust him that we begin to understand him and his supernatural nature.
They're still loving their own essence because they are the same essence. They are loving themselves. So you can see how nonsensical that is, and trying to explain it will only lead to confusion. Love has always been, even before there was anything except the person of love himself, and that is the only thing that makes love so profound. Love himself is the only one who is worthy intrinsically of his own love, and he expresses love towards us out of his goodness, not out of our goodness. Otherwise, the three God people love each other conditionally. They love each other because they are good and obedient, and they agree with each other. Whereas that shatters the love that he gives to us. That is not the love he gives to us. It is not because we are good or obedient or always agree with him.
He loves us out of his goodness. He doesn't love us as a reward. Even though he does love us because we believe in him, he loves us more than he loved us before we believed in him. He's a person. He has a right to love some more than others. That might be something that you reject. I don't know, a lot of religious people say, no, he loves everybody exactly the same. Well, clearly, that is not the case when you look at Esau and Jacob. But just know that your God is one. And that is crucial to knowing a person. You must first accept that that person, is an individual. Because we struggle with loving each other so much. Just think if you thought the person you were speaking to was a half or a third or a portion or a representative of who they really are. It would be impossible to love that person. If we try to love each other the way we presume to love him, which basically says, well, you can't understand it, just believe it. That would be ridiculous. We wouldn't do that to each other, and neither would we accept that from other people. I don't really know who you are, but I love you for who I think you probably are. That wouldn't work. And God, we should be even more understanding and believing in who he is, because he's made it clear. That's the whole thing. He said it literally thousands of times, and we have hundreds of studies on that called on the person of Christ. It talks all about how he has made it clear over and over and over again that he is this one, the only one, the source of all things, or all in all. That is Jesus Christ. There is no God beside him, and he is beside no God. He is the living God. So seek that, get in touch with that, because there is power in that. Not power like religion says to get all these things that you want in the flesh and all that, but the power to be loved, the power to know your Creator for the person that he is. That is everything. That is life. That's the only thing that's going to continue when this is all over. The world is going to be gone, but it's just going to be God and the people who believe in him, who trust him. That's what's going to be left when this is all over. What that's going to look like, I can't tell you in detail, but it's not going to have any of the trappings of this world, including religion. And I'm glad to say that in Jesus' name. Amen.